sometimes we forget on the board that, we've done this some 30 times, and we forget the threads that we have between the 2015 inductees and the 1986 inductees. In 1986, when I was a much younger guy with a couple of hairs on my head, we were in a much smaller room and had about 60 folks, and we inducted folks into the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame with names that you all recognize: Paul Poverezny, Steve Whitman, and some guy from Milwaukee by the name of Billy Mitchell. And the thing that ties us to those three pioneers of our first inductee class was that passion. And I want to talk to you a little bit about a guy that's got that passion in spades, and it's not uncommon for our inductees, so I want you to not only recognize it in Charles Vehlow, but also in all of our inductees. And if you get a chance, if you haven't been to our website, do that, but if you get a chance even more so to, as you leave the building today, continue. I'll tell you the top secret way to get out of here, and that's to continue not up the stairways, but to the left, down a long hallway, and you will see 120-some plaques with all the stories of all the inductees, and you'll read that passion. So anyway, Charles Vehlow graduated from high school in 1964 from a place called Waukesha South High School, and he was elected in his senior year the top student athlete. I think that becomes a prerequisite to getting an appointment, to West Point. Last year we had a West Point graduate from Oshkosh, and it's amazing. I think the Army wanted equal time because while he graduated from West Point, he enlisted in the Air Force, and so the Army wanted their opportunity to show an Army participant and graduate of West Point. Chuck graduated from West Point in 1968 and then went on and completed Ranger and airborne courses, and then began helicopter training course at Fort Rucker. For those of you helicopter people, you know it affectionately as Mother Rucker in Alabama. That's okay, you can laugh, that's all right. So upon graduation, he immediately departed for South Vietnam, where he flew with Troop C, the 2nd Squadron of the 17th Cav, flying the AH-1G Cobra helicopter. Chuck didn't just fly that aircraft. He was awarded the Silver Star, 3 Distinguished Flying Crosses, Bronze Stars, 3 Bronze Stars, and 24 Air Medals. He didn't just fly that aircraft, he excelled at it, and he excelled at his job. Other assignments after he got back from Southeast Asia included time as an instructor at West Point, and I made sure that everybody was going to do the slides, and I've somehow forgotten to do that. Here's Chuck with a Huey in the early 1980s as an instructor at West Point. You wouldn't know it. I had dinner with this guy on Monday and had met his family yesterday, and I've never seen that face before. Really, he's got this smile constantly, and then I see this captain here, and I'm thinking, whoa, I'm kind of glad I was in the Air Force. So anyway, in 1975, Captain Vehlow entered MIT, where he, after 2 years, earned the Master of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering, a degree that would really pave the course for the rest of his career. Chuck then went on to work at a number of helicopter manufacturing facilities, including MD and Boeing. And at Boeing, he led the team that designed, developed, tested, and fielded the AH-64D Longbow Apache. Before I forget, though, and that smile, going back to that smile on his face, here's a little bit of a hint of that smile where he was a squash coach for West Point. Now, I was an enlisted guy in the Air Force, and I have no idea what squash is. I thought it was a little green thing that you cut, and it's orange in the middle. But I'm pretty sure that these guys weren't eating squash by looking at the waistbands. But that's the smile I've grown to associate with Chuck Vehlow. The slides have stopped moving. Okay. So anyway, what we wanted to do and what Chuck promised to do is we told you a little bit about his story in the program. And so you've heard and read a lot about, especially the table back there that I warned we're going to get tested. The test is after we're done talking here. So get ready, get your pencil sharpened. But Chuck is actually going to tell some of the stories that he wants to share with us. So without any further ado, I'd like to have you please welcome Chuck Vehlow. Chuck.
Members of the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just honored and humbled to be here this evening with so many special and elite Wisconsin aviators. I'd also like to thank Rose and the selection committee for selecting me this year as an inductee because it's another great honor to be inducted this year with Daryl and Greg and Jim. To my sister Joni, and my West Point buddy, Jim Locker, thanks so much for putting together the nomination package. To John, thanks so much for the introduction this evening. As you kind of went through and did the chronology of the many different assignments that I've had and talked about some of the different opportunities, it became very clear to me that I simply can't keep a job. But aviation has been a passion for me all my life. And you know, when you talk about passion, you can generally describe it with stories. And I would like to just talk a little bit this evening about my passion for aviation through the stories of what has been for me a fantastic 45-year career. Welcome along for the ride. Welcome aboard. Strap in. I'll try and avoid turbulence and no smoking. So my dad grew up in Watertown, my mom grew up in Waukesha, and frequently on the weekends we would head over to Waukesha County Airport, Christ Field, and watch airplanes take off and land. And that's really where I developed a desire and a love to want to be a pilot. But that really kind of got cemented when I was at airborne school, Fort Benning, Georgia. Jumping out of C-123, C-130 airplanes, you know, you put a parachute on your back, you put another one on the front just in case. You kind of shuffle to a door, you jump out, everything's real quiet. You hear a pop, you look up, and there's a chute. And during one of those jumps, I was kind of floating down, and I said to myself, you know, I just jumped out of a perfectly good aircraft. That led to flight school. So in flight school, Mother Rucker. My first solo was in a OH-23D Hiller helicopter. 4-cylinder, piston-driven, twist-grip throttle, wooden blades. Had a heater that always blew carbon monoxide into the cockpit, so we kept it real cold in there. But for those of you that have ever soloed an aircraft or soloed a helicopter, I think the ending of the poem High Flight really says it all. To know the feeling, to be alone in the high, untrespassed sanctity of space, to put out your hand and touch the face of God. That's really neat. So another experience I had, and John mentioned I had served in Vietnam. I was flying a Cobra helicopter as part of an air cavalry reconnaissance element. We were flying out toward the Laotian border in the northern part of South Vietnam, known as the A Shau Valley. And I had a call sign. I was in a unit that was called the Condors. I was Condor 26. So as we're flying out to the A Shau Valley, I hear on the radio, Condor 26, welcome to the A Shau Valley. I said, this is kind of weird. This is the North Vietnamese 326 Anti-Aircraft Regiment, and we welcome you. That was a little bit scary. I was an astronaut candidate. I had a privilege to spend a couple weeks in Houston, get to know Deke Slayton pretty well. He's an honorary and inductee here in our Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame. I had a chance to fly the shuttle simulator during the 2 weeks I was there as a candidate. I also had a chance to sit in front of mission control the first day that the 747 that carried the shuttle disconnected. And the shuttle is really not a shuttle, it's an aerodynamic rock. So the shuttle goes up and it comes around and it lands really nicely on the 15,000-foot runway there at Edwards. And it was just fantastic. Everybody at Mission Control, of course, was elated. And I thought, great, why this outstanding chance I had an opportunity to perhaps be an astronaut. Well, that didn't work out, but that's okay too, because other things did. And one of those other things was the fantastic experience of teaching helicopter engineering at the United States Military Academy at West Point. And it was a great thing because I could teach in the morning, and then I could go out and fly helicopters and fixed wing with my students in the afternoon. And it was a pilot's dream. It was really rewarding to do that in the classroom, but was much more rewarding was to see those students go on and become senior leaders in the United States Army and top executives of the companies and organizations in the United States. I'm so very proud of them, and that was rewarding. As a lieutenant colonel, I worked in the helicopter acquisition branch in the Pentagon, and I was in charge of all of the Army's money for buying helicopters. Kind of neat. You know, so for the late 1980s and 1990s, I kind of helped manage this money. It was millions and millions of dollars. Kind of made me feel like Warren Buffett. But I also had the opportunity to be a CFI and teach regularly. And one of the students I taught had one eye. He only had a left eye. And he came to me and said he wanted to learn how to fly. So we looked at the regs and what could be done, and he could actually get a license. So I went up with another instructor, and I covered my right eye, and I sat in the left seat. And I tried to get a feel for what my student would see and feel as he had to learn to fly with only one eye. And it worked out great, and he got his license. And another great aviation experience was working at McDonnell Douglas in Mesa, Arizona, helicopter plant. And I had the privilege of leading a team of professionals that designed, developed, built, and tested the AH-64D Longbow Apache helicopter. And that was a real treat. These folks were professionals, and we put together a heck of a helicopter. And then I had an opportunity to fly it. Fully digital, fully electronic, fully aerobatic helicopter. And for me, an old Cobra driver, the difference between flying that helicopter and flying a Cobra was the difference between a Maserati and a Model T. But there are two very special highlights and events that I want to bring out tonight. The aviation experience that I am most proud of was the privilege and honor of flying in the service of our country in combat against the enemy. To me, there has been nothing more satisfying in my entire aviation career than flying in the service of our country. The second experience is my most memorable aviation experience. And that happened about 8 years ago. And it was on a flight from March Air Force Base, California, to Williams Field in Arizona. I had the privilege of being able to fly on a C-17 aircraft. What was neat about it is my son Pete, who flies for the California Reserves, was the AC for that flight. He's also a captain for Southwest, and I had also been his CFI. I taught him how to fly a long time ago in a Grumman Cheetah at Stowe, Massachusetts, Minuteman Field. So we get on board this C-17. I'm up on the flight deck with Pete, and about 500,000 pounds worth of airplane, 3.5 stories above the ground, and we're taxiing out, and I'm getting a lump in my throat. I mean, it's a big old lump. And my eyes are beginning to tear up a little bit, and I said, this is absolutely neat. So we take off. We're off into the LATCA, and then the TCAS is going crazy. And I'm just really, now, I can't say a word. This lump is huge. So we cruise out over Nevada, and then we come back across the Grand Canyon, and it's just absolutely magnificent. And we come in, and we land there at Williams Field in Arizona. And we climb down off the flight deck, and as we get off the aircraft, I put my arm around Pete, and I said, my son, I really, this has been the most memorable experience that I have ever had in aviation. And I just don't even, I can hardly talk. And I could kind of see that it was getting him a little bit too. He's starting to tear up a little bit. So we get off the ramp and I said, but I'd like to remember, I'm still your commercial flight instructor. I'm your CFI. And on your landing, if you would just apply a little bit more back pressure on that big old nose wheel and just kind of grease that in a little bit better. He looked at me, smirked, and said, yeah, right. But all of these unique and special aviation experiences have been possible because of three very constant things in my life. And they are faith, family, and friends. With respect to faith, I've always had a strong relationship with God, a strong belief in God, and I've always had an understanding that regardless of what the circumstances, things would work out okay. With respect to family, I can't say thank you enough to my family, who is sitting right down here. I owe you so very much. The conversation around our house would kind of go like this. Where's Dad? Oh, Dad's out flying. Dad's out learning to fly another aircraft. Dad's out teaching somebody to fly. Dad's out flying to another business experience. So to my family, I love you. Thank you for your support, your patience. And then to my co-pilot, to my wife, Kate, I have to say a very special thank you. She's been my high school sweetheart since Waukesha High School. We've been married 47 years. She moved out to New York City the last 2 years I was in college so that we could be closer. It's just been a great ride for these 47 plus years. I've learned a lot from her. She taught me never to forget where I came from. She taught me how to love our kids and our grandkids. And she taught me to hold family and friends close. So, darling, I love you with all my heart. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm glad I married you. With respect to friends, Abe Lincoln probably said it best, and that is the best part of your life are your friendships. So Kate and I have been blessed to have some tremendous friendships. From Waukesha High School, a number of classmates are here. Hey, black shirts out there. Hooray, Waukesha black shirts. To my West Point buddies, Black Knights on the Hudson, you go you cadets. Yay, Army. To so many people that I've had the privilege to get to know and work with and live with throughout the United States, friends really are the best part of our life. And I'm really pleased that so many of you are here tonight. But now, before Rose gives me the hook, I've just got one more group of folks that I'd like to say something to, and that's kind of the younger people in the audience. I've got 5 grandkids sitting up here, so I want to say, you guys listen up. Okay, when I got into aviation, I didn't know what I didn't know. But yet, it was a great opportunity to get out and learn things and take a chance and kind of find out and explore. So I would like to urge you to pick up the Latin phrase, carpe diem. Carpe diem. Seize the moment. Seize the opportunity. Things aren't going to plop in your lap. You've got to go out there. You've got to expand your boundaries. You've got to go out. There's new technologies, new processes, new materials, new ways of handling data. It's all so neat, but you've got to go out and get it. So don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, because that's really what our country needs if we're going to remain strong and free into the future. Thanks so much for this award. I'm really humbled. May God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.